Welcome to the Robo Producer exclusive podcast. I'm Noah Dingley. You normally hear my views on politics, authors, religion, etc., etc. But these exclusives are going to have a bit different focus. A few of my other passions in life are going to come out and be thrust into the light, so to speak. You'll learn a bit more not only about these interests, but the details and inner workings of those niche areas as well. For today's show, I had to move the remote studio from behind a big construction site, from huge boulders, etc., which would make the broadcast not possible. But I'm being told from our producers, we've now set up in our other area, our other location. Hopefully, our guest will be able to come through quite clearly. And I was asking my producers to get a top-tier movie reviewer for the show with me today. Let's check in, see if they've hit a home run. I'm told we have one. Lord Vader, are you with us today, sir? Lord Vader, check in, please.
That is correct. We have moved the ship out of the asteroid field so we can send a clear transmission.
They were boulders. But okay. First off, you may want a humidifier for that bad breathing, sir, that you have going on. If we need to reschedule, we are very gracious here on the Robo Producer podcast. We can reschedule. Do we need to do that for you?
Your concerns for my breathing are unfounded. My armor serves me well. There is no scheduling conflict. I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Well, if you aren't impressed by my faith in the matter, I guess we better press on, quote unquote. To quote one of my favorite movies, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Which brings me directly, Lord Vader, to you. You have an impressive resume I'm looking at right here. Very impressive indeed. Apparently, you are trained in fencing. You're one heck of a pilot, it says, and also you were trained by one General Kenobi. Is that correct?
Indeed, I am powerful, as you have said. I rival Master Yoda as a swordsman, and I'm the best star pilot in the galaxy. Needless to say, I'm pretty wizard. But to answer your question, I was trained by General Kenobi before I discovered the true nature of the Force. The power of the dark side.
I'm a little confused. Apparently you have this power. Does this power of the dark side, does it originate from the moon?
That's no moon. That's a space station.
No, Lord Vader, that was a little rock and roll humor right there. You know, Pink Floyd, the album, one of the classic albums, Dark Side of the Moon?
Never heard of them. Are they anything like the Max Rebo band?
Never mind that. Max Rebo. The elephant was my favorite in the Max Rebo band. Just want to point that out. Now let's get on with the interview. With all of this extensive training that you've had, and a lot goes into it, obviously, Lord Vader, I imagine that you had to live life by a certain code, did you not?
The Jedi Code was highly restrictive. They wouldn't even let me have a girlfriend, for crying out loud. How do you not date Padme? Just look at her, man.
Now is the portion of the interview where I admit I know a little bit more about your life than I was willing to admit in the beginning. And this is where your life gets really interesting. You betrayed your master, shut down the local youth program for people such as yourself, and from there decided to go into the space program. Was this program you went into, tell us, was it anything like NASA? Or was it much more of a military operation in space?
First of all, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. And my former master betrayed the Republic first. And as for the younglings, I did what must be done to bring peace and justice to my empire. Second, the Empire is light years ahead of your planet's feeble space program. The Imperial Navy is the largest fleet in the galaxy. In the final days of the Clone Wars, the Emperor personally placed me in command of the 501st, an elite unit of clone troopers to deal with the Jedi problem. Once our final victory was complete, I took my place at the Emperor's right hand, enforcing his will and hunting down Jedi that survived Order 66 and bringing order to the galaxy. I also oversee troop deployments and the construction of Imperial installations, including the second Death Star. I work closely with Sign-Off Fleet Systems to create the TIE Advanced X-1, because I'm good at fixing things. Always have been. Also, I'm a pilot, and someday I'm gonna fly away from this place.
Didn't you already fly away? Hello? My lord looks like he's in a daze. Lord Vader. That's fascinating. And I know there was lots of family drama at that point. Time passes, and so forth. But where along the way did you, my lord, decide that you wanted to give all of that up and do what it is you do now? Review movies. I mean, that's a great gig.
Well, when you toss your old boss down the reactor core of a Death Star when he's trying to kill your kid with magic space lightning, it kind of limits your career options. And I've always had an interest in film, but once I saw what they did to my son in The Last Jedi, I felt it necessary to release my anger upon this film. People enjoyed my reaction so much, I started reviewing other films, and the channel eventually began to grow. Now my faithful soldiers of the Empire tune in every Saturday for my weekly reviews and occasional fan film projects. Master Yoda has been on the show quite a few times. We've had Darth Maul, Nigel, my Imperial Guard, and we'll even have a Stormtrooper once TK-255 finally gets his armor put together. Eventually, we're hoping to expand our cast to include either Boba Fett or his father Jango, once we start getting more financial support, because running an empire isn't cheap.
Oh boy, how quite to say this to Lord of the Universe. Well, first off, I am actually one of the fans that rather enjoyed The Last Jedi. Your son, in my opinion, IMO, as the internet craze millennials would say, looked like a Jedi Master that went beast mode. Didn't even need to physically be there. And that took a massive amount of force power. Something we've never seen before. I'm still like, wow, of that moment. Okay, being a shadowy kind of force knight, are you the Sith the interwebs deserve? Or maybe you're not what it needs right now.
Are you questioning me?
Well, my lord, this is an interview, and this is my show. However, I would like to point...
I am the chosen one. It is my destiny to bring balance to the Force and bring order to the galaxy. Don't be too proud of the cinematic terror Rian Johnson constructed. What he did to my son shows a great misunderstanding of Luke Skywalker and the mythology of Star Wars George Lucas created. Mark Hamill himself didn't even approve of the direction they took his character in. Luke Skywalker has been a symbol of hope and optimism for generations. He saw the good in me when I was destroying entire worlds for the Emperor. But I'm supposed to believe when he senses potential darkness in his nephew, his first instinct is to murder him in his sleep. Killing someone in their sleep is a Palpatine move, not something my son would do. Also, having Luke lose faith and abandon everything is grossly out of character. And if you try to use the argument that Yoda and Obi-Wan were hiding in the original trilogy, I've got you there too, buddy. Because in the end of Episode 3, Master Yoda tells Bail Organa and Master Kenobi that they must go into hiding until the time is right. Because he knew they could never defeat the combined strength of the Emperor and myself. They weren't giving up. They were biding their time until they had a chance for victory, showing the storytelling genius of George Lucas, that now the Jedi have been reduced to an order of two. Ironically, they must hide and wait for their moment to defeat their enemy, adopting the tactics of the Sith to save the galaxy. Rian Johnson also says the legacy of the Jedi is one of failure, because at the height of their power, they let Darth Sidious take over the galaxy. But once again, Johnson didn't know what he was talking about, because if you watch the prequels, the Jedi were not at the height of their power. Master Windu says their ability to use the Force has been diminished by the growing power of the dark side. And once more, for over 1,000 generations, the Jedi were the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. Luke was around the age of 19 during the events of Episode 4, meaning Palpatine's rule lasted for roughly 30 years or so. So when you compare the dark times of the Empire to over 1,000 generations, I think the Jedi did alright, don't you? There are so many character and canonical problems with The Last Jedi, I could hardly sit through it. But having my son give up and Master Yoda burn down the sacred Jedi tree was unforgivable. Every interesting plot thread J.J. Abrams set up in The Force Awakens, even though it was still about 75% a rehash of Episode 4, Johnson either threw away or resolved in such a dissatisfying way, I honestly don't even care about Episode 9 at this point. And while I'm glad you and other Star Wars fans can enjoy Episode 8, it is something I simply cannot do. And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. And the fact that so many people have been maligned or marginalized because they didn't enjoy the movie saddens me greatly. Films are supposed to entertain and enrich our lives, not divide people into angry opposing factions. Star Wars used to bring people together, but unfortunately, over these past few years, it has only been tearing us apart.
Do you like movies overall? As I do, I'm just a huge movie buff. Many different genres of film that I particularly like and have certain favorites of. Perhaps their themes have impacted your life. Or is there something about the process that just fascinates you?
I've always had an interest in storytelling of any kind ever since I was a child. Particularly visual storytelling like comics, animation, and film. The right imagery can convey powerful themes and emotions. The overall process of filmmaking, from pre-production and design to post-production, where the final elements, including the score, are added, is intriguing. Encompassing every art form to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Done right, it can be one of the most compelling forms of expression and storytelling. And even when it is done wrong, it can provide endless hours of discussion and enjoyment tearing it apart and making fun of it. I'm a huge fan of Mystery Science Theater.
Lord Vader, are you sure you're okay? That heavy breathing seems pretty persistent. It's been there since the beginning of the interview. I just want to make sure you're all right and that you can continue.
It's just my respirator. You get used to it. Being left to burn to death on the side of a volcano after your best friend chops off your arm and legs takes a lot out of you. Believe me.
I've actually heard that this is your very first podcast interview. Lord Vader, you apparently don't spend a lot of time in the spotlight. Is there a reason for this? Though believe me, if this is indeed your first podcast, I am tremendously honored to have you. I've heard so much about your work.
Well, I've only been doing this YouTube thing here on the interwebs for a little over a year, so not many people know about Vader Reviews yet. We're nearing the 800 subscriber mark, but the empire is growing, and my faithful soldiers are all doing their part to spread my words across the galaxy. I've been on a couple of live streams as a guest of Weaponized Nerd Rage, who has been a great supporter of Vader Reviews, and I'm sure eventually I will grace other live streams and podcasts with my presence. But also, I have an empire to run, a rebellion to destroy, a fan film to plan, movie reviews to write and film each week, animated shorts to produce, drawing tutorials, and 6 manga series I'm working on. I'm swamped.
Now, Lord Vader, I am going to throw 2 movies at you. Tell me which film is, as you rank them with Death Stars, which one receives more Death Stars. Apparently, this is where things can get pretty wizard, if I can say that. But maybe I'm stealing one of your lines. I think you've said that more than just now and again.
It is kinda my catchphrase, something my old buddy Kitster and I used to say back on Tatooine.
Back to the Future or The Fifth Element?
I suppose Back to the Future, although neither rank very high among my personal favorites. I prefer Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure to both.
Excellent. Raiders of the Lost Ark or Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Oh, Raiders of the Lost Ark, without a doubt. Never nuke the fridge. And I'm sorry, but Indy's afraid of snakes. His father is afraid of rats. His son, Mutt Williams, should have had an irrational fear of monkeys. And how could they pass up not bringing back the whole Don't Call Me Junior thing? They really should have just left this a trilogy.
Well, to be honest, Lord Vader, Raiders of the Lost Ark is my all-time favorite movie. I absolutely love it. And it's a real cinematic masterpiece in many ways. And with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I would have found a way to bring back Sean Connery. Don't think you really should have had the film without him. Since you like to use the word wizard, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, or Excalibur.
Raiders of the Lost Ark define the action-adventure genre. It is truly a landmark in film history. As for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, or Excalibur, I've never seen either if I'm being completely honest. But speaking of wizards, the Lord of the Rings films are by far the best fantasy films of all time. And Saruman is pretty wizard. Come to think of it, he kinda reminds me of Count Dooku for some reason.
If you've never seen Excalibur, it is right up your alley. A true classic, cinematic classic with Liam Neeson and Patrick Stewart at that. Last one. And I want a reason for this one, buddy. Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4, or Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Captain Picard and Master Qui-Gon in the same movie. That does sound pretty wizard, but to answer your question, while Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, changed film forever with its memorable characters, groundbreaking visual effects by ILM, and sweeping film score by John Williams, The Empire Strikes Back is my personal favorite. From the Battle of Hoth to the thrilling asteroid field, the film is full of impressive and imaginative visuals, while delving deeper into the characters we grew to love in the previous film, without destroying everything they stand for, like in the modern era of Star Wars. The film deals with important themes subtly, not as clumsy or random as current installments. It is an elegant film from a more creative age. Plus, I may be biased here, but I get the most screen time in this particular film, and it greatly benefits from my imposing presence. The Empire Strikes Back is a true hero's journey where young Skywalker faces overwhelming odds and struggles to overcome the dangers that are set before him, all while selflessly trying to protect and save his friends, instead of sulking on an island drinking green space milk. And it goes without saying, the lightsaber duel on Bespin is one of the greatest in the entire saga. The mood and atmosphere is haunting, ending with one of the biggest twists and iconic lines of dialogue in cinema history.
First off, we know that blue milk is the better milk. At least I think it is. Wouldn't you agree? And I'm sure you've had some on Tatooine, not just growing up as a kid, but on your return visits to Tatooine, correct?
After seeing where green milk comes from, I agree completely. Blue milk is by far the superior form of sustenance. Kitster and I always had blue milk on our Spaceos every morning for breakfast.
Second of all, I agree there is a certain cinematic magic that goes hand in hand with The Empire Strikes Back. And I prefer the original Empire Strikes Back, non-special edition, which is increasingly hard to find, with Jeremy Bulloch, my man, as Boba Fett.
I can understand longtime fans preferring the original cut of the film. However, I honestly prefer Tamora Morrison's voice. He's like a Maori Clint Eastwood. And as they say in the voiceover industry, he has a voice with character. He's also a very underrated actor in my opinion, and I'm glad he's now part of the Star Wars galaxy.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with you, Lord Vader. I love meeting and talking with individuals that love film like myself, and watching your reviews is something very special for me. So before we go, tell us what the future holds for you, and now we can mention it. Your review platform is Vader Reviews, correct?
Yes, our platform is Vader Reviews, where I review the very best and worst film has to offer. I occasionally discuss games and books as well.
Games? Video games? Have you ever played the classic NES game, the original NES, the classic game, Bionic Commando?
Being an old cyborg myself, while Bionic Commando does sound like it would be right up my alley, I was always a Sega kid growing up. Gunstar Heroes was my favorite game of all time, until the Nintendo 64 came out. But like I was saying before your interruption, as financial support for the channel continues to grow, our ultimate goal is to expand our production to create short films and more animated segments like the Vader cartoon for Star Wars Day.
The Vader cartoon is Swiss. I love it. Such a great Japanese flair to it.
I put nearly 3 months of intensive work and sleepless nights into it. Anime, Batman the Animated Series, Samurai Jack, and of course, the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars series for Cartoon Network were the main influences on the animated short. And while I'm glad you enjoyed it, even so, this is the second time you deliberately interrupted me. Don't fail me again, Dingley. Now let me see, where was I? Oh yes, our main goal is to begin production on our fan film, Age of the Empire, set between the events of Episodes 3 and Rogue One, where a group of rebels and a Jedi that survived Order 66 tried to liberate an Imperial death camp that had been placed under my protection. There will be aliens, fighter attacks, lightsaber duels, everything you want in a Star Wars film. Plus, I've just begun work on the first manga series we will be releasing through Robo Studio, our creative team behind Vader Reviews. We have a lot of exciting things planned for the future as the channel continues to grow. We have a PayPal set up for Robo Studio where people can support Vader Reviews and all of our other creative endeavors.
And people can find you, grabbing my composure, people can find you on Twitter and YouTube at Vader Reviews, correct?
That is correct. Just search Vader Reviews on YouTube and you'll find us. And follow me on Twitter at Vader Reviews to keep up to date with everything we're doing. I post a link to my latest review every Saturday on Twitter because sometimes YouTube plays dirty with smaller channels and unsubscribes fans without their knowledge or doesn't notify them of new videos even when they've hit that bell for notifications. So Twitter is a great way to make sure you never miss what we're up to.
Absolutely wizard.
I told you that's my catchphrase.
I mean, excellent. And I have a challenge for you, my lord.
I'm always up for a good challenge. Have you ever seen a pod race? I'm the only human that can do it.
One of the great classic sci-fi films of all time is the Stanley Kubrick masterpiece, 2001: A Space Odyssey. If you like movies with a deep theme and humanitarian thought process that goes behind it all, this is something that if you haven't already seen it, you need to, and you need to review it as soon as possible. I think, my lord, that we should also create a dueling review from here on the Terran system to your meditation chambers. I'm sure it could be a day perhaps remembered, and most likely in the long form.
The Emperor does not share your optimistic appraisal of this film, but your concept for a joint review interests me. Though I have never seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, I have heard it is an incredibly complex film. Also, that the effects were a large influence on the original Star Wars. I will have to track down this film, but I look forward to this review with great interest. With our combined strength, we will dissect this film and bring order to the internet.
Well, that's a wrap. I'm Noah Dingley, your humble Robo producer. Now that I think about it, tremendously ironic that we've had Lord Vader with us on the show, the Robo Producer podcast. Anyhow, my lord, thanks for the time. It's a treat, and you have 30 seconds. The floor is yours, and then we're closing the blast doors. We're closing the blast doors.
thank you for having me on your program today. And I would also like to thank my loyal soldiers of the Empire for their faithful support. And if you have never seen Vader Reviews, join the Empire today. You do not yet realize your importance. Join me, and together we will rule the internet. And always remember, you don't know the power of the dark side.
A very special thank you to my new friend, Lord Vader. We will see you all next time on the Robo Producer Podcast. Peace be with you all. Salutations.
By the way, can you validate the parking for my TIE Fighter?